another suggestion. Gosh, I love suggestions. And to have it be the movie which led to Walker, Texas Ranger? It's an honor. There's a lot of ways this video could go, from overtly loving of the material to downright critical of the stunt driving that was done in the movie. I mean, crawling out of a grave. I don't want to take away the love there is for this movie, but at the same time, I have to take some time to cover the ridiculousness of some of this truck's impressive feats. I have a lot of love for this movie. El Paso has a deep personal connection to me, so I've decided to be reverent to J.J. McQuade. I wouldn't want to test any Chuck Norris facts and risk harm upon myself and possible future hospitalization. Hopefully, resuming work on the Ford Bronco rebuild will be enough to appease the gods. If you're new to this channel, I like to split up the video usually in 3 parts. First, what the character's needs are, followed by a narrowed-in look at some of what the vehicle has to offer to the story, and then I round it out with the identification of the vehicle and answering the question, is this the right vehicle for the character? But that's enough ramblings for now. Let's talk about McQuade's beautifully muddied Dodge Ramcharger. The Texas Ranger is a select breed of law enforcement officer. Their office covers anything from the apprehension of wanted felons to the protection of property and wildlife. They're also obviously the only division that is unique to a state. This job requires specifications that not many vehicles can meet. The Ranger Division writes their own specs for vehicles in order to place requisitions before starting the fleet bidding process. Many awarded vehicles will then even be upfitted, meaning given additional modifications before being delivered to the department. This is important to keep in mind as we look to identify the vehicle later on. While the Texas Rangers of today have a preference for the Ford F-150, Chuck Norris began favoring the Dodge pickup in the 80s and continued using them into the 90s and the turn of the century. This can be seen long after Lone Wolf McQuade, the film Chuck Norris credits as the inspiration behind Walker, Texas Ranger. While he started out with a 92 GMC Sierra in that series, he transitions to and drives a 95 Dodge pickup through the rest of that series, and then changes yet again to the Dodge Ram SRT 10. Since we're looking at the needs of a stylized Texas Ranger, we can continue to look at both Lone Wolf McQuade and Walker, Texas Ranger in this section. What I really want to focus on is the legacy of what these movies did in terms of persuading the storytelling of the stoic officer. In the TV show, we have several Blazers, Broncos, F-150s, Silverados, Sierras, Jimmys. Now, take a look at any modern cowboy or sheriff's deputy in today's TV shows. Chuck Norris did more for the appearance of stoic law enforcement officer than many people give him credit for. The grit presented by the Texas Ranger has been passed on in some of the most watched shows on television, with Longmire's Ford Bronco and Hopper's Chevrolet K5 Blazer. The Terminator even shares a prolonged scene with a Ford Bronco in Judgment Day. And hey, while you're here, and we're talking about other movies and shows beside Lone Wolf McQuade, if you have suggestions for another car, whether from a movie, TV show, or video game, send them to the comments below. I enjoy the process of making these videos better when I know I'm making something people want. But we're not done with this class of vehicle. Why is it so attractive to the likes of J.J. McQuade, Walt Longmire, or Jim Hopper? In Lone Wolf McQuade and Longmire specifically, we have a lot of off-roading needs. There's also an aggressive aesthetic that is effective when it comes to a menacing grille in the rear-view mirror. And when it comes to possibly hauling evidence from dirt paths, nothing works better at both delivering the necessary cargo space and protecting from the elements like the 2-door SUVs of the time. These trucks were made for the Texas Ranger, but if the department has certain specifications they need to meet, what else could they require in the early 1980s? So as we continue, let's set aside Longmire and Hopper, at least for the moment. The famous accessory of McQuade's inventory is, without question, the Y-end Street Charger. Used only twice in the movie, we see him do 3 important things with it. 1. Select for it to turn on from off. 2. Outrun Arcadio Ramos in the deserts of El Paso. And 3. Push himself through a sizable amount of dirt. The second isn't all that unexpected, so I won't pay much attention to it, but the first and last, those deserve some time. The first point has been hotly contested. Can you select between on and off for your supercharger's blower? The answer is yes. You could connect it to its own clutch, but it's not likely that McQuade's department would have done it. That's a lot of taxpayer dollars for the development of a technology that would only be marginally beneficial. It's happened before, but it's just a lot of work for very little reward. The third point is a myth, just straight up. There's no need to do any real investigative work. But I don't like being a party pooper, so let's keep on rolling because the supercharger is cool. I mean, where else do you see the intersection of car culture and law enforcement? Okay, let me rephrase. Where else do you see car culture and law enforcement come together positively? Alright, yes, the answer is always the Fast and Furious. I get it. But in the 80s, this was really it. This defined stoic, law-abiding, car-modifying manhood for an entire generation before the Honda Civics got released in the Fast and the Furious. And while this type of masculinity has come under fire, I wouldn't trade Chuck Norris's long-reaching example for anyone else in the world of the time. Anyway, while the YN supercharger is mostly found on Chevys today, it wasn't uncommon for them to be seen on Chrysler-made vehicles, especially if the Ranger division required base model vehicles to be outfitted with more capable equipment before taking delivery. We could do a price structure breakdown of McQuade's truck. It would effectively come out to $50,000 in today's money, but I'm trying to resist this urge. Every time I do a video with a law enforcement officer, I have this urge to call into question their income and ability to get the truck presented to us in the motion picture. But I already did the law enforcement breakdown with Mike Wachowski from Sonic the Hedgehog, and it's unnecessary. J.J. McQuade was living alone and were well within the limits of believability for this truck and its supercharger. Besides, the Texas Ranger division is the one footing the bill for the vehicle. But let's get into the fun part. To identify this truck, there are two, one could argue for three, levels of filtering. You could rule out anything beyond 1985 because of the grille design. You can also rule out anything past 1983, the year of release for lone Wolf McQuade, which leaves our option as 1981, 1982, and 1983. Most of the internet seems to agree that it's a 1983 Ramcharger, but is it? The evidence against it is twofold. One of them, not even great evidence. That one is that the movie was released in early 1983, April 15th, meaning getting a new model vehicle for principal photography in 1982 would have been difficult. Not impossible, just difficult. But let's look at trim levels first before we rule out 1983 entirely. If we are to do some base level judgment calls with our low resolution footage of the Dodge Ramcharger emblem, we can glean some important information about the class of vehicle J.J. McQuade has at his disposal. The Dodge trim emblem has two components, a number and a package description. There's the base model without a package description, so it just says either 100 or 150. There's the custom trim level, there's an LE trim level for limited edition, and the Ultralux Royal SE. While the tail number is obviously a 0, the second of the three numbers doesn't appear to be of equivalent curvature. Indeed, the curve's offset is enough to lead me, and hopefully you as well, to believe it's a 150 model, which doesn't mean a whole lot nowadays. The 150 line was used to skirt emissions regulations while touting a 1,000 pound heavier payload. There also seemed to not be any 100 models during the year 1981 to 1983. Many customers testify that there is no difference between the two, but what does matter in the emblem is the distinct two lines of text running beneath the number. The only Dodge pickup trim level to use two lines underneath the number is the top of the line Royal Special Edition. There's even a further distinction that we can make. Dodge had the designation of either a D100 or a W100, and same with the 150. If it was a rear-wheel drive model, then it was either a D100 or a D150. Since there's a differential in the front and rear of McQuade's truck, it's four-wheel drive, meaning a W150. So not only is the internet assuming the newest model year of the Dodge Ramcharger as its steed, but I'm willing to bet that this was also the most expensive Ramcharger, and the condition of it is less than flattering for the main character. I said before, getting the newest, top dollar vehicle and then weathering it for the story's needs isn't impossible, just rare. I made another video about how Interstellar, being set in the future, used the newest Ram 1500 of the time and beat it up to look like a relic farm truck. But this is a little different. Where's that third filter level? Believe it or not, the front bumper. See, 1981 and 1982 shared one bumper design, but in 1983, they added a sharper crease in the bumper's belt line, and not just to certain trim levels. This was across the lineup. And if we compare the 1983 bumper to that of McQuade's Ramcharger, we can know for certain that it's not a 1983 model year vehicle. With 2 years left, how do we narrow it down even further? Sure, there's this guy that says the 1982 to 1983 grille was only a 2-year grille, but come on. I need more evidence than hearsay because that's a load of crud. Only 2-year grille. Here's the trick up my sleeve. Look at the wheels of the Ramcharger. In any image search, the most commonly used rim of the Ramcharger is the 15-spoke rim. It was incredibly hard to find the same wheel as the one used in Lone Wolf McQuade. But find it I did, on a picture for every Ramcharger model leading up to but not exceeding 1981. Ladies and gentlemen, everyone, this is a 1981 Dodge Ramcharger W150 Royal SE. I'm 80% certain. Gosh, it's going to kill me whether those wheels are the deal breaker between 1981 and 1982. I'm 100% confident in ruling out 1983, but to get it down any further, the random commenter from more than a decade ago is going to have to show us his source, which explains how this grille, which runs from 1981 to 1985, is in actuality only a 2-year grille. But honestly, 1981 makes a ton more sense than the 1983 year that the internet has been leading people to believe for the past, maybe since discourse about this movie was put on the internet. It's cheap enough for the production crew to wreck it through the southwestern desert and possibly have alternative picture cars in case it broke down. But regardless, this truck is decked out enough to have all the needs of a lone wolf persona. If he's in the middle of a chase and needs to run down his prey, then the off-road capability and unnatural supercharger takes away that reliance on a partner to head the pursuing off. Is this the right vehicle for the character? J.J. McQuade was a lone wolf field ranger in need of a 4x4 vehicle which could climb out of tough situations and was powerful enough to tow or push given the circumstance where it's needed. Within this movie, these qualities were needed time and time again. The addition of the supercharger, while not a necessary performance feature, gave a visual to the audience that was the most effective at displaying the needs of power in the moment. Whether the visual execution was the best method can be debated, but there's not a doubt in my mind that this type of vehicle isn't only what Jim McQuade wanted, but it's also what he needed. Thanks for watching. The research for this truck was intensive, but worth it, I think. If you agree and enjoyed this video, hit the like button. Like I said earlier, if you have another car you'd like me to analyze, let me know in the comments below. Finally, make sure to subscribe because there's more Picture Cars videos on the horizon. Thanks again, and I'll see you all in the next one.